Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, my heartiest congratulations to CNBC TV18. 25 years, really long and wonderful journey, and it's been a pleasure to be part of this journey. So my heartiest congratulations to the entire team led by Shireen, Rahul, and the others. So we have 30 minutes. It's not a lot of time. There are so many things to discuss. I'm going to kick off with Rama because it seems like the secret sauce, Rama, is the price of tomatoes. Is that the answer to everything now?
Absolutely. I think everyone who wants to be in the stock market should buy their vegetables and cook them for a week. But I live in the main street, far away from you, and I watch people to understand how they earn, how they spend. And I will say that there are a group of people, many of whom are in this room, the top 20%, to be generous with the number.
Top 0.5%.
No, not in this room, but many of whom are in this room, all of whom are in this room, you're right. The top 20% are doing okay, thank you. And everybody else is under stress. And I suppose if you buy the theory that you have to have investment to have a vibrant economy, to have all the usual stuff, to have jobs, to earn, to spend, you cannot divorce earning from spending.
Okay, so on that somber note, let me go to Vaidya. So a lot of people are complaining that credit growth is anemic. Is this a demand issue or is it a capacity issue?
See, this is more prudence. Because look, India's credit is growing by, like we say, 15 odd percent until last year. But obviously, if someone is borrowing money, they have a real use for that money, and they can put it to a return that is even higher than 15%. So, or if they're borrowing at say 12 or 13%, they're probably earning 17, 18% of the core business. So I would say a good credit demand is a representation of a good demand in the underlying economy.
And what about the capacity issue?
If you see India's credit market today, it's about $2 trillion. That's 170 lakh crores. And even if you compound by just 12%, not too much, just 12% for 20 years, this will be $20 trillion. Just think about it, Rhythm. 2 trillion becoming $20 trillion. Well, in our lifetime, 20 years. And even if you see the other way around, India's GDP, let me say 20 years from now, say $30 trillion, and 60% of that is credit, and that's $20 trillion. So which way you read it, the $20 trillion is correct. So I would actually say that India needs to expand its banking capacity. We need more banks probably, and we need serious capital. Today India has about 25 lakh crores of equity capital in the banking system. It has to go up by at least 13, 14 times. So we have to keep this industry very attractive for investors, and it is everyone's responsibility, the government's responsibility, the incumbent's responsibility, the newcomer's responsibility, even the regulator has a role in this. I think it is very important to create that kind of equity capacity to have that kind of credit growth.
So that's a very interesting comment. Samir, एक ही क्वेश्चन है सब लोग पूछ रहे हैं गोरे क्यों बेच रहे हैं?
I think they are mostly done with it, plus minus a few weeks. Because the question in the beginning was whether they are selling India to buy China. So that relief can be there that they were not selling India to buy China. But it appears that they were selling India or are still selling India to buy US or go back to US, because all the things that we've been asking here are being done there first, which is lower taxes, cut regulations, even at least keep corporate taxes in check and all that. But you know, this trade has already made whoever was in time maybe 25%. Let's say the Indian market is down 10, but the stocks are down say 12, 15%, and the US market is up some 7, 8, but regular stocks are up 10, 15. So after a 30% move, it would be a bit unreasonable for these investors to think that they have another 20, 30%, that they should still sell India, still buy those stocks that have done well. Plus minus a few weeks, I think they don't have to come back. But as soon as it's near zero, I think our friends will make the market go up 4-5%. And that again would make, everybody calm and things will move on. I think that will happen before this year end.
Okay, so let's come to our friend. Nilesh, is this just a correction or did the peak of the bull market go behind us?
I think we are at a stage where every correction is an opportunity to buy. There is a BC era and AC era. Before CNBC, when markets used to correct, we used to go to investors and say, don't worry, this is just a correction, markets will bounce back. After CNBC, now it's different. People come back on a correction day, Nilesh bhai, darna mat, we are sending money, गोरे को खत्म कर देना. एंड आज ये बेच रहे हैं तो ये भाव है, सोचिए जब लेने आएंगे तो कौन से भाव पे लेके जाएंगे. लगान मूवी का एक डायलॉग है, दुगना दाम देना पड़ेगा. हम भी वही डायलॉग रिपीट करेंगे.
I like that. So, Samir, back to you. What do you think? This is a slightly longer term question. And don't tell me, that we should cut taxes because tax rates koi kaatne wala
No,
nahi.
now the good thing is they won't raise taxes.
So what do you think India could do, say 2-3 things, really potent things that could make foreigners more endeared?
So, by the way, it is first fair to understand the issue that the post-tax returns of India are not as attractive as other markets. So you don't cut, but there is a cost to that. Now somebody will say that why didn't you, the FII that is, why didn't they sell in July or whenever this happened and why now? Because you need an excuse and a justification, and when you find the first fault, then you pile on, and like in a fight and when you're resigning from a job, when you are divorcing, you find 100 items even though only one item was the real cause. But I think actually there's one more thing. We should not keep saying that it is FIIs leaving India to go to US or China. It is because India has had pathetic results for a large part. And these things don't change in 3 months, but they may change in 6-9 months. So the market, I think, will become very narrow. And this unbridled, this thing that if it is bad, doesn't matter, next quarter will be good, at least we will not play that. But there is some responsibility of the fact of the system or our GDP. The numbers have been very bad, and that's why these two are responsible for that part of the...
I'm coming to them, in fact, Vaidya, to you actually on this point. Do you think this recent economic slowdown has produced any stress in the system?
No, not really. I think fundamentally things are very resilient in India because of the new digital ecosystem that has come about. Basically, I believe that the guardrails in the country have become very strong. To just give you one data point, for example, now there are close to about 600 million trade lines on 4 credit bureaus each. Now, every month, close to about 35 million new credit lines are being sanctioned and disbursed, 35 million. And talking of stress, one thing I'm noticing is that the new to credit applications is only now 10% of the disbursal. It used to be 20% 5 years ago. So basically, I sense that the Indian banking system has become more conservative over the last 5 years. I think it's got to do a bit with even what the regulator has been constantly cautioning. I think people are picking those cues. And the drop of new to credit from 20 to 10 tells a story of increased conservatism.
Another question that I keep getting from people is capital spending back? Are you lending for projects? Do you see that projects are taking shape?
Well, it's not caught up yet. I think that for a while now we've been talking about the capital demand coming back. I think it's been pushed back by 6 months and 6 months for a while, I think so. It's the micro entrepreneurs, what they traditionally call the RAM, the retail, agri, MSME. This machinery is pulling strong. It's about 1 lakh crores today out of 100 lakh crores today out of a total of about 170 lakh crores.
Okay. So Rama, somehow I feel that it's not like the overall consumer market is in pain as much as large consumer companies are facing pain because of a lot of disruption that has happened. And I remember many years ago, it was almost impossible to beat Hindustan Unilever at selling soaps. And a lot of structure in the distribution has changed, building brands has changed. How do you detect these things? Essentially, what in your view is the winning formula for a consumer company now versus say 10, 15 years ago?
So to begin with, I think the structure of demand is not as rosy as we think it is. We are a large economy of lots and lots of small income people. I think there's no getting away from that. It is also true that about 80% have absolutely very little surplus income, which means that any kind of shock, whether it's the price of tomatoes or whether it's a rise in the price of petrol or increase in EMI, whatever it might be, or the possibility or not having enough work, does get them to almost a zero surplus. So it's not like the Kamadhenu that keeps giving you demand. It is also true that the top 20% have over half of income. So that lot is safe. Now you will find that all the consumer-facing companies who have interacted with what I would call the India 2 and 3 are in pain. That's part of the reason, part is what you say. It is also possible to run a stock market entirely for the rich, of the rich, by the rich, with companies that do not interact with India 2 and 3. And there are most companies in India, barring a handful, do not actually address the mass market. But those that do are in a bit of pain. Add to it another whammy. I think it is true that things have, local competition, small competition has caught up, because what do people do? What people actually do is to say that if I have to balance my budget, I will go to a price performance point that suits me better. Once upon a time, we used to call it the unorganized sector, saying that they're disorganized, they're rubbish, that's the point. But over time, the unorganized or the small sector has actually started getting leaner, meaner, fitter. So there is competition from there as well. I recently read the CEO of a consumer company saying, well, quick commerce is the reason I'm not growing. And I thought that's a bit strange. Why are you competing with the distribution channel? And if I were to decode it, it means that that distribution channel owns a bunch of customers. It wants it's a zamindari where it wants very, very high margins. I'm not willing to play in that channel because I have other guys. That's a strategic choice. So I think there is local competition, there is vulnerability, because that is the structure of our demand, and our economy is not firing on all cylinders. So incomes are generally muted. Plus, if you're not able to crash your prices any more than you already have, you have a problem. So most companies are now saying the magic mantra, premiumization. What does that mean? According to me, what it actually means, they're saying, is that I will go to a higher price performance point of products, which I will sell to people who can afford them, because that class is safe. But unfortunately, if you are one of the handful of companies in India where a large proportion of your revenue and your EBIT comes from the mass markets, you are in trouble.